Gehenna. Posted by Appeterson. It has been 3 months since I returned from Gehenna. In those 3 months I have not told a soul what I found there. Not my mother, though she asks why my eyes seem so empty. Not my father, though he wonders why I cannot bring myself to smile. I can no longer even bear to see old friends. I do not feel there is anyone left in the world who knows me. The person they all knew is gone, left behind like the shell of some sea creature destined to take a new shape and grow into something else. There is what my life was before Gehenna, and that person is a stranger even to me. There is only the life I'm living now, after Gehenna, and I feel like I am 1,000,000,000 years old, and that even the stars are young in my eyes. It is no longer possible for me to say if what I found at Gehenna is right or if it is wrong, because the scope of it is still beyond my ability to judge. Yet I feel if I do not answer this question I will never be able to become human again. Though another part of me feels that being human was merely something I did when I was younger. That humanity is something for a child, and I outgrew it like I outgrew my toys and that I cannot go back. When I was given the responsibility of God, set to judge the wicked, I accepted the responsibility. I ate the hamburger. No child would have eaten that hamburger. Yet, it was satisfying and I laughed to see the cows cry. Maybe all I have been feeling is merely an attempt to find absolution for that sin. Gehenna cannot be explained outright. Doing so would not let you experience the reality of that place. Gehenna must be experienced to be understood. Therefore, I will explain it to you as I experienced it. And then I hope you will forgive me for helping you to understand. A question, young lady? A gentle shake on my shoulder woke me. The hands were soft, like old leather or a baby's earlobes. Kind hands. A grandfather's hands. I groaned coming awake, but the hands made me feel safe, so I did not scream. Focus, please. Yes, time to wake up. Gently, gently. Quite a blow you took to the head. We shall have to get you an ice pack, but you have no concussion. I checked while you were sleeping. I have an important question for you, please. Very important, so try to focus. I lifted my head, but my vision was too blurry to make anything out in detail. God, my head hurt. I remember it felt like my whole skull was about to split apart in 100 fragments. It was like a red wine hangover but concentrated in one angry knot at the back of my head. A soft hand caressed my cheek, the only point of comfort on my entire skull. It might have been intrusive or offensive had not the hands been so kind. Sometimes I can still feel them there, and I shudder to think that the same hands which had built something so terrible once touched my face. If you were to eat the horse half of a centaur, would that be cannibalism? The words were just sounds and I lacked the ability to put them together, but something about the way they were said caused me to jerk my head away. Even if I had understood, the strangeness of the question would have repulsed me. The oddness of it. The way the terror and absurdity of it made an alloy of unpleasantness. The knot on my head collided with the headrest of a heavy metal chair and the room spun. I tried to scream, but then I realized there was a rag in my mouth. Ah yes, the gag. Our Mr. Hoffman is being overzealous again. He worries about exposure, you see. Yet I have always planned for this facility to be public. Your break-in only advanced the date. Shake your head yes or no, and we shall decide what to do with you. My captor, a bent back and was an old man who I could only assume was Jewish from the yarmulke on his head, sighed when he saw my obvious shock. With a sense of dread I tried to move my hands and I realized I couldn't. I was tied thoroughly to the chair. Panic set in and I struggled against my bonds. Young lady, please. We are not the monsters that you suppose. I had no recollection of how I had come to be in the chair. All I could remember was breaking into the slaughterhouse with my friends and the horror we all felt while videotaping the atrocities that were being committed against the cows. I remembered the stink of blood and shit, which I could smell faintly even here. Then I remembered a darkness that came when something had struck me on the back of the head. Yes, calm now. It's not so bad as that. Calm, please. Calm. The man's frail old hands pat me on my shoulder again, somehow slowing my breathing despite the danger I knew I was in. The incongruity of him, the sweetness of his old face in this bare concrete room with only a light bulb overhead, 2 chairs, and a drain in the middle of the floor soothed me somehow. Like finding an oasis in the middle of a desert. I still do not know if I should have found that oasis to be poisonous or pleasant. Ah, I understand. Deciding what to do with you. Poor choice of words. My apologies. English is not my best language. You are not in danger. We will not hurt you more than you have already been hurt. Maybe we will have the authorities slap you on the wrist for trespassing, yes, but we are not murderers. Far from it. So focus. A centaur. The creature from Greek mythology, are you familiar? Part man and part horse? His hands were on both my shoulders now, and he breathed in time with me, as if to pace me until I had calmed down. I nodded when sense began to return, the action more reflexive than deliberate, heart racing so hard I could feel my pulse in my entire body. If you ate the horse part of a centaur, would that be cannibalism? He asked again. His eyes, despite their age, were clear and a dark brown. The color of fertile soil. I realized he was one of the oldest men I'd ever seen. Almost 100 years old, I'd say. Maybe even older. I remembered the cows again. The pictures I'd taken on my cell phone. The horrors outside of this concrete room. The reason I'd come to this place. I screamed into the gag. The old man sat down and sighed, rubbing his lower back, fretting in a language I guessed was Hebrew. He seemed more distressed than diabolical. I cannot stand this. To be the cause of your screams? Bah! What we have done here is good, and I will not have it tainted with these actions. If we remove your gag, will you speak with me civilly? I understand you are animal rights activist? That is the term? Yes. Good. Morality is very important to you. It is important to us as well. Mr. Hoffman, remove the young lady's gag, please. I didn't even know anyone was behind me when the hands came around my face and pulled away the gag. The hands smelled like the cows had smelled. Like sweat, shit, blood, and fear. I gagged to have them so near my face. Young lady, I would like to have you on your way so your friends will not be worried about you. Will you dash? When the gag was all the way out, I screamed as loud as I have ever screamed in my life. Unmuffled, the scream was so loud it hurt even my ears. When I was done, I gulped down another chestful of air and screamed again. A scream so piercing it was like a needle until my lungs were so empty I could see stars. The old man winced and frowned, then gave that characteristic sigh again. Would you like me to put the gag back in, sir? The voice asked from behind me. The old man shook his head, emphatically. We are not monsters, Mr. Hoffman. Our cause is a just one. She is scared. I will not have us be the kind of people who will gag a scared woman. The old man pointed a finger in the air, signaling an idea had just occurred to him. I thought for sure he was going to change his mind and order me executed. After what I'd seen him doing to those cows, I figured he had to be some kind of sicko. Maybe he is. I don't know. Like I said, I still can't figure out if what he's doing is right or wrong. Fully expecting to die, to my surprise he only rolled up his sleeve and held his left forearm a few feet in front of my face. I saw a tattoo so faded it looked like a blur, but I thought there was some structure there, numbers maybe, and what I believed to be a triangle under the numbers. The numbers, yes. Look. You can see. The numbers. You see? Good girl. Very smart. You know what this is, yes? Your schools still teach it good. May it never be forgotten. I see it in your eyes. Once I was held captive and hurt. I would like you out of those restraints as soon as possible. It is my sincerest wish. Will you speak with me? I nodded, mostly because I wasn't sure I could scream anymore. Then I started crying. I'd never been so terrified. Are you going to kill me? I asked between sobbing fits. So brave, snorted Mr. Hoffman. The old man snapped his fingers, like you would at a dog, with a loudness that belied his age. Mr. Hoffman went silent again. No, my word on it. I am in charge here. No harm will come to you. In fact, I apologize for your treatment. Mr. Hoffman said he found no explosives on your person, only pamphlets. You came here to spread your message, to take videos, yes? Not to hurt anyone. You came to protect the animals? I very much respect this. I wish this had been done for me many years ago. I nodded again, unable to speak. Mr. Hoffman, please remove the restraints. Do not give me that look. We are not monsters. If you cannot do this work with a just heart, I can find others to replace you. We will not become what we are fighting here. Slowly, the restraints around my arms, legs and chest slackened. I saw the side of Mr. Hoffman's face as he maneuvered around me. He looked like Liev Schreiber except bigger, and with a few extra pounds. Like he would have been handsome if he took better care of himself. Most of all, he wasn't that scary now that I could see his face. I took a full minute to catch my breath. I saw the cows, I panted. You do. Awful things here. I saw you tearing the skin off of cows that were fully awake. I saw a cow having its eyes burned out with a poker. I saw a man rip off a cow's legs with a... Bile rose in my throat at the thought. It was a pneumatic tugger, said the old man, helpfully. I pressed my head into my hands and let the tears flow. How can you do something so awful? That's monstrous. You're going to hell, I screamed. I found some of my fighting spirit again, now that I knew I was safe. In fact, I almost felt stupid for having been scared. Like I'd betrayed my values. What I had gone through was nothing compared to the suffering of those animals. In another few minutes, I was sure I could work myself up to the level of anger I'd had when I broke into this place. The level of rage that I was then certain needed to be directed at a place such as this. Jews don't believe in hell. Mr. Hoffman chuckled from behind me. The old man shot a disgusted look over my shoulder. Much as I hate to agree, Mr. Hoffman brings up an important point. Jews do not believe in hell as you do, though the name for this place comes from our closest analog, or actually, we have not yet been introduced. I am Dr. Abraham Adelman. Although I've been retired for some years, I was a neurologist. What is your religion? I normally would not ask so bluntly, but it has some bearing on the situation. You're fucking sick, I spat. Dr. Adelman's kindly grandfather smile didn't drop in the slightest. We are not what you suppose, young lady. Those creatures you care so much about are not innocent. Those are not cows out there. Or rather, I should say, they are not just cows. He sounded like he was explaining something simple, as to a child. What the fuck are you talking about? I felt the anger coming back. It felt good to be angry. I had never understood people who could be confronted by monsters and sit by idly and let them devastate the world. And it's that very conviction that now makes me so unsure of my first impressions of the slaughterhouse. For now I am older than I was then, and I understand hell can be virtuous. Justice, young lady. Those creatures deserve everything we are doing to them. Jews do not believe in hell. It was necessary for us to create one to find justice. That is what I am trying to explain. For the first time there was something cold in Dr. Adelman's face, and it made me think of something horrible my own grandfather had told me. When I was young he had sat me on his knee and told me there was nothing in the world more dangerous than the fury of a peaceful man. Your name, the doctor insisted. Hannah, I said. Hannah Aronson. The doctor laughed, delighted. I sense you are not observant, but you are Jewish, yes? Through your father's side at least? What else do I see? Do not tell me. Irish? Good. Wonderful. I can dispense with my questions then. A fellow Jew, what a blessing. Do you see Mr. Hoffman? I am quite progressive on this. I have hope one day all races might be one. Then terrible men such as the one who brings us here will not be able to make us kill each other so easily. I heard Mr. Hoffman grunting behind me and I jumped forward in my chair. Dr. Adelman, all due respect, this is a threat to the security of the facility. Shush, Mr. Hoffman. You have never understood my designs for this place. Why, once the world knows of it, I imagine there might be something like global peace. This slaughterhouse is a deterrent greater than the atom bomb. Who would ever dare commit atrocities again if they knew they might end up here? Atom bombs were meant to deter nations from going to war, but jeopardize the world. This facility will stop the monsters who would lead their nations to war, and it targets no one but them. I stood up, which ended their conversation abruptly. Hey, listen, how do I get out of here? I want my phone and my backpack and I want to go home. Then I'm going to upload those pictures and show the world what fucking creeps you are. I still don't fucking get it. Are you getting paid for this? Are some sickos watching this on webcams somewhere? Animals deserve better than this. They've never done anything to anyone. I want out of here. Now! You sick fucking creeps! The doctor did not seem disturbed in the least, and Mr. Hoffman only chuckled. You're American, yes? Of course, what else would you be with that accent? I will have questions later about how you heard about an Israeli slaughterhouse, but not today. You are American and we will be hospitable. Though I was liberated by Soviets, I owe much to your nation. Those animals, as I have said, are not innocent. In fact, after this, we will have a hamburger. French fries too. They are my favorite. I gave him the most patronizing look I could muster. I'm vegan. Obviously. And I wouldn't eat anything that came off those poor animals even if I wasn't. The doctor laughed again, all out of proportion to the situation, and I wondered if he wasn't senile. I am as well. We are so much alike, young Hannah. I could not stand to eat meat after the camps. I felt too much compassion with the animals. I have no compassion for these creatures. We will let you go shortly, but may I tell you a story? In fact, I will tell you the story of this place. I will tell you why we do what we do. For your articles and newsletters and pamphlets? I turned around to get a full view of Mr. Hoffman, and was surprised to realize I was taller than he was by a full 4 inches. And for all his laughter, he seemed scared now that I was moving about under my own power. I want my phone. I want to get someplace where I can see the outside. I want to let my friends know where I am. Then, yeah, I'll listen to your fucking story. Mr. Hoffman said several things I'm pretty sure were terrible curse words, but which I couldn't follow, and stormed out of a door that had been directly behind my chair. He returned with my backpack, which he shoved into my chest, and then disappeared again, only to return with a wheelchair. You've already exhausted him enough. While you're in there telling our secrets, I'm going to go talk to the board. Some of them are more practical than Dr. Adelman. Somehow, I wasn't afraid of him. I snapped a picture of him with my cell phone. He blinked, and I think he would have ripped the phone out of my hands if the doctor wasn't staring right at him. I'm going to make you famous, I sneered. Hoffman's face was stone. I am going to talk to the directors about this, Dr. Adelman. We can't compromise this facility yet. Dr. Adelman ignored the comment. Take us up to the visitors center, to the tour shuttle. It should be safe enough after the last week of construction. You can talk to the directors while I explain this place to Miss Aronson. That should give you plenty of time. I warn you though that they will agree with me. We are survivors, after all. I am confident the young lady will see our point of view after we explain. We navigated several tunnels and emerged in a dewy meadow I had seen on my arrival at this place. I could hear eerily humans screaming not far away. And sounds like flesh being ripped apart. The sounds of the slaughterhouse. I was about to scream again when the doctor's hand was back at my arm. Patience, Miss Aronson. All will be explained. Everything happening here is moral. And when we are done, you will share a hamburger with me. Dr. Adelman laughed. Even the thought of meat made me want to throw up. We walked a few dozen yards more and I began to wonder if I was walking to my death. Except it all seemed so harmless suddenly. The way Hoffman pushed Dr. Adelman was so emasculating and pathetic that it turned off all of my internal alarms. Which is stupid, I know. Monsters don't look like monsters. They look like regular people. And sometimes, in real life, you can't tell the difference between a monster and a hero. Hoffman had to fight with several tarps and Dr. Adelman's wheelchair, but after 10 or so minutes we finally arrived at something that looked like a roller coaster. Hoffman put Adelman in the front cart, and the doctor patted the seat next to him, signaling for me to join. "What the fuck is this?" I asked. "Justice," said Dr. Adelman again. "Justice that has taken me the better part of 80 years to attain. There are no audio recordings yet for the tour, so I will provide the narration. One day, we plan that every Jew in the world should be able to come to this place and see what we have done here. Why not be the first?" "Are you crazy?" I asked, too confused to be angry. "Perhaps," Dr. Adelman laughed. "You tell me when the tour is done." I sent a text message to my friends and waited to make sure it had been sent, along with the pictures of Hoffman so they'd know who to look for if I went missing, and then sat down in the seat next to the doctor. Mr. Hoffman must have pressed some kind of button out of sight because the next thing I knew the cart was lurching forward in that somewhat jerky way that roller coasters do. I felt the pit of my stomach drop as we made a sharp turn. We shot out across the dewy field for only a moment before we came to a stop in what looked like a museum. Everywhere I looked I saw old medical equipment from the early 1900s. Glass jars full of God knew what. Old textbooks. Old notebooks. A picture of a young man who looked uncannily like Dr. Adelman. There were also several half-completed dioramas of medical offices. Ah yes, the resemblance is strong. Not me, though. That's my father. He was a brilliant surgeon in Munich before the start of the war. I was not quite 5 when that picture was taken. It is hard to explain to someone as young as you what hopes we had for science back then. It seems so much of that enthusiasm was lost afterward. The world saw what science could do at Hiroshima and Nagasaki and recoiled. Yet in my life, I saw us go from the horse and buggy to putting men on the moon. I saw us go from gas lamps to electric lights. My father believed that one day even death might be conquered. He was not alone. I'm afraid the next exhibit is not quite ready. It is mostly just ice. I should have brought you a jacket. The cart advanced into an empty facility, and I shivered with cold. There was ice everywhere. On one wall was a picture of a brain, labeled in extraordinary detail. I looked over to the old man who seemed unaffected. His eyes were less mirthful in this exhibit. Dark like they had been before. My father was a pioneer in the field of cryogenics. In fact, he made discoveries and breakthroughs in his work that were not replicated until the late 1980s and early 1990s. It is a common misconception that cryogenics is not viable due to ice crystals forming in the cells of the specimen. If water were used, it is true that it would cause irreversible cellular damage. However, this was not true even in my father's work. The key was to rapidly dehydrate a specimen after death and replace the body's blood with an antifreeze agent. The specimen was then not frozen but vitrified, turned literally into a sort of biological glass. Ice crystals do not make cryogenics non-viable. What makes cryogenics non-viable was that no one had any idea how to revive the specimen after it had been vitrified. At least at that time. The cart advanced again. We were in another room. This one full of pictures of Hitler? Everywhere I looked, there were pictures of Hitler. Mad eyes gleaming and his hand raised high. I was speechless. Videos played of his speeches. A whole biography of his life was laid out on all the walls. The Führer was, of course, attracted to this work, although he could not publicly admit that he found value in the work of one of the Juden. All madmen want to live forever. Charlatans have offered immortality to rulers for as long as humans have lived. Yet my father promised not immediate immortality, but the only practical path by which it might be attained. Freeze a brain, wait until future science allowed it to be reanimated and the body to be reconstituted. I tried to forgive my father for those early entreaties. He was not aware then of what was waiting inside of that wicked man. At first, Hitler paid my father to conduct research and left him alone to operate as a free man. This was before the final solution. Then I and my family were sent away to the camps to serve as hostages while my father became something like a slave, forced to freeze the brains of captive Jews to perfect the science of cryogenics. I am proud to say he fought this at first. It was not until they sent him my mother's head and my sister's eyes that he relented. I put my hand over my mouth. "Oh my God!" I said. Dr. Adelman only shrugged. "I do not believe God took any part." The cart rolled forward. We were in a room that seemed to be some kind of replica of a bunker. There were mannequins in uniforms everywhere. Everywhere I turned there were replica figures standing in various locations in full Nazi regalia. Then I noticed one diorama that made no sense. I saw a wax figure that looked like Dr. Adelman's father bending over the wax figure of what was obviously Hitler's corpse. Dr. Adelman's father was holding a jar with a brain inside. God was not with us during the Holocaust. Perhaps he turned his back for a time, but we were not his chosen in the camps. Not in my opinion. Perhaps he came back later when the Americans and Soviets arrived. Anyhow, we could not rely upon God to condemn such a man such as Hitler to hell. Ah, here is the bunker, where the body of Adolf Hitler died and where his brain was secured and stored by my father. Yes, I know the story with which you are familiar. The bunker was raided later. My father escaped prior to that under guard. The guards who escorted him and the brain were among the last to surrender after the war. My father slipped away before that, and he kept the brain. He kept it. Do you understand? He got away with it. Dr. Adelman hissed the last few sentences, the kindly grandfather eyes replaced by something much harsher now and much crueler. The cart lurched forward, and what I saw ahead was worse even than the cows. Everywhere around us were pictures of the Holocaust. A German in a jeep driving over the bodies of Jews. A mass grave. A German soldier throwing a Jewish baby up in the air and spearing it on his bayonet. Every horror of the Holocaust was laid open, bare and explicit in this room. One man caused the death of 11 million, 6 million of whom were Jews. Oh, he was helped. Others were also responsible. But his was the will that they obeyed, and so the ultimate responsibility was his. One man did all of this. One man killed my mother and my sisters and my brothers and forced my father to kill. One man sought fit to industrialize murder and exterminate a people. One man brought the nations of the world to war. The cart rattled forward again. This time I saw a modern lab and pictures of Dr. Adelman a few years younger than he was now, surrounded by a team of researchers. It took 3 years for me to find my father again after the war. I was all that was left, and although still quite young, I was already on the path to becoming a doctor. When I saw the brain was intact, I knew then I had a responsibility. I dedicated my life to reviving it. I was not alone in my efforts to reanimate the brain. It was the work of thousands of scientists, only a handful of whom knew the true goal of the project. We cultured neural tissue. We grew whole brains. We learn how to image the brain at the atomic level and reassemble it. In short, we could reproduce the original. And once we knew how to do this, we just needed a place to put it. A human would have been the easiest, but that had certain ethical implications. What if he escaped? Many who claimed to revile him would flock to support him if he were to reappear in such a fashion. No, we needed a form which no one would ever follow, which no hateful man could be inspired by. The cart rattled forward, and now we were in a room where there were pictures of Dr. Adelman transplanting a brain into a cow. The cows are clones. I insisted on this for ethical reasons. I am, as you know, a vegan. We grow the cows without brains. They are never alive, truly. Our current capacity to do this is at about 100 cows a month. The mothers live their lives in freedom, I am happy to say. It is all done with the utmost concern for ethics. I chose cows because a slaughterhouse is what the camps were. A slaughterhouse is a place where murder is industrialized. It was the most fitting punishment I could devise. I wished to return to him what he had given to the world. The cart rattled forward, and I could hear the screams, the human screams, and smell the shit and the piss and the blood and the fear. We were going back to the facility I had been in earlier. The heart of the slaughterhouse. The building where I had been taking the pictures when I was knocked out. I'm curious that you didn't question the coloring. We have them marked very specifically to keep them distinct in case one ever gets away. An all-white cow with a single black spot on its head and a single black spot on its lips. I am told the resemblance is uncanny from just these details. And the way they speak. Did you not notice? We never planned that they should learn to speak. They are not good at it. Yet I'm surprised you did not realize they were speaking German. A cow approached us, nothing but skin and bones, and it looked up at me and Dr. Adelman with the most piteous, comprehending eyes I had ever seen on any animal. Hab neid. Bit. Totet Michigan es war falsch Michigan über en dir zu stellen. Bit ich flie huken. Es tut mir leid was ich den Juden engeten have. I could hear the words now, distorted though they were. I did not know how I'd misunderstood before as being the sounds of a distressed animal. Dr. Adelman whistled, and a man with a cow prod appeared and hit the starving creature in the face, sending blue sparks everywhere. As I said, these things deserve all the punishment we can give. They are Hitler. This is Hitler's hell. Further into the facility, I watched a machine rip off a cow's skin, leaving a red bit of muscle quivering where the whole cow had once stood. Lidless eyes conveying terror as the cow's mouth silently screamed. It walked around for a dozen steps screaming before blowers appeared and blew salt onto the bloody meat. Another machine appeared and whipped the animal until it fell to the ground, more pulp than cow, yet still horribly alive. I turned my head. There was the sound of the pneumatic tugger again, ripping off a cow's feet and leaving its body rolling on the ground screaming, bleeding from 4 stumps. There were a dozen cows not far away in stalls. They had been propped up and were being anally penetrated to death by spiked chrome pistons so that their insides bled and liquefied and oozed out every time the piston retracted. I watched a cow stumble fearfully out into a hot piece of iron that gradually turned red until the cow's hooves melted in place, only for the plate to grow cool again. A glass cylinder descended and encased the cow, and spiders were blown down as if by a fan, pinching and furious from the treatment and smelling blood. The cow snapped its own legs off trying to flee. We have the original living in a relatively unmolested place where it can oversee the whole process. We have mutilated it somewhat, of course. It has no tongue. We could not risk some fanatic somewhere being seduced by its words. I ripped that up myself, I'm glad to say. I used pliers and Mr. Hoffman helped me keep the grip. We also amputated its legs, although we did so more carefully than what you see below. We intend it should live a long time, watching all of this. I did not know what to say. I still don't. And maybe that's why I'm writing this, because I don't know if what they're doing is right or if it's so wrong that even Hitler doesn't deserve it. We have told the one in the observation booth that we will do this 11 million times. Once for every person he ordered killed. He will be the last victim, and we intend to make that last a decade. After that, who knows? The world has no shortage of genocidal maniacs who deserve this place. I couldn't stop trembling. Dr. Adelman put a hand on my arm to comfort me, but I pulled away. Ah, you must be worried about the waste. Fear not. We utilize all that we can. We have a gift shop full of leather products. Shoes, belts, jackets. Even lampshades. We use every bit, and we grind down the excess and feed it back to the monsters. I can also tell you that the old Spanish proverb is quite wrong. Revenge is not a dish best served cold. I prefer mine medium well done with a slice of cheddar, mayonnaise and ketchup between a brioche bun. Would you care to join me, Miss Aronson? I assure you this meat is truly guilt-free.